Welcome to the Super Fun Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Victoria. I'm a marketer and I love to talk about marketing, and I actually think it's super fun. In fact, I think it's so super fun that I wanted to make a podcast so that I can just ramble more about marketing. So we're going to talk about all the super fun bits about marketing, as well as maybe some of the not so fun bits. But hopefully you'll enjoy what's to come in these episodes. This is my very first episode of this podcast, so if you're here and listening, thank you very much, especially if I didn't force you to listen to this. Yeah, thanks for being here. And if I did force you to listen to this, then thank you for actually listening to it. Yeah, shout out to you. I'm sure that over time this podcast is going to change and evolve, but for now, just going to go into it and see what happens. Hopefully we all learn something along the way. Maybe we make some new friends. Maybe we just have a really good time, and maybe we learn something new about ourselves as well. But to start with today, in this first episode, I wanted to go back to basics and see, where did marketing actually start? What's the evolution of marketing up until today? I think maybe some marketers have studied marketing and maybe you know a little bit about this, but I just really wanted to have a look at, when did marketing start? How did we end up here? And where do we think it's going to go? I think that I'll wait until the next episode to talk about where do I think it's going to go. But at least in this episode, we can talk about how we got to where we are today and see how things have changed. So I don't know, maybe you'll find this interesting, but we're going to look at, like I said, the evolution of marketing. So from ancient mosaic tiles found in Pompeii all the way through to the modern marketing era that started around the 1950s, onto the era that we're in now, and then also the era that I think that we're entering into. So let's take a look at what is marketing. Let's look a little bit into the history of marketing and where we've come and where we're maybe going. The bit of an evolution. So you can't talk about marketing definitions without looking in the dictionary. Has anybody ever done a speech and not started it with, the Oxford Dictionary defines, that's how we're going to start this. The Oxford Dictionary defines marketing as the activity or business of promoting and selling products or services, including market research and advertising. If you study marketing, that's probably a familiar definition to you. But another definition that I also saw, which is a recent one from 2008, even though 2008 is not super recent anymore, from the American Marketing Association. Their current definition says, the activity, set of institutions and processes for creating, communicating, delivering, and exchanging offerings that have value for customers, clients, partners, and society at large. Oh my God, that is a definition. And what I actually learned is that definition is refreshed every 3 years, or they review it and they see if it needs to be updated. And, you know, that's a very complex definition that we just saw. But the 1935 version says, marketing is the performance of business activities that direct the flow of goods and services from producers to customers. Oh my gosh, it was so much more simple back then. Oh, crazy. So I think we can all agree that marketing has definitely changed over time. So basically what I wanted to look at, because I'm interested in it, maybe you're interested in it too, is the history of marketing, because it must have started somewhere other than just us posting on LinkedIn, right? So what I did is what any good researcher does, and that's, I looked at Wikipedia. I mean, guys, it's my podcast. If I want to look on Wikipedia, I'm going to do it. I would never reference Wikipedia for work or for a uni project or anything like that, but it's my podcast, so let's do this. So, according to this Wikipedia page, it says, the practice of marketing has been known for millennia, but the term marketing has been used to describe commercial activities that have assisted the buying and selling of products or services. That came into use in the late 19th century. So the term marketing, for like what we kind of do as marketers, that only really started to be used in the late 19th century. So not that long ago, considering that marketing, the practice, has been done for millennia. The word marketing, it first appeared in dictionaries in the 16th century, where it referred to the process of buying and selling at a market. So marketing can kind of be divided into two things. So academics kind of divide marketing into two things. There's the marketing thought, which is kind of the way that marketing is studied and taught. But then there's marketing practice, which is actually what a lot of us as marketers, that's what we're actually doing. We're doing the marketing. And that's what I want to focus on for the rest of this podcast. So marketing practice, like a lot of things in just general things, a lot of experts don't quite agree on where marketing first began, but they have found some evidence of it from back in Pompeii. I don't know how often you think about Pompeii. Maybe Pompeii is my Roman Empire. I don't know. I think about Pompeii a lot. But around 35 BC, there was a manufacturer of fish sauce who had these mosaics in the atrium of his house that had these marketing phrases. So basically, this guy was like using the mosaics in his shop to say about how amazing his fish sauce was. And actually, word got around that he had pretty good fish sauce and it was very high quality. And apparently, his reputation traveled as far away as modern France. So we say, or we academics, the experts, often attribute this to one of the first known marketing practices, marketing activities. So some academics, I always want to say they do a lot of things. They argue that modern marketing is thought to have risen as a result of consumer culture in the 17th and 18th century Europe. And others argue that marketing was only fully realized in the decades following the Industrial Revolution in Britain, from where it subsequently spread to Europe and North America. So basically, marketing as a practice has been done for a very long time, but the modern way that we think of marketing now as like a professional practice has only come about more recently, with a focus on things that we all know and love, like segmentation, positioning, and narratives, rather than just basic branding and distribution. So prior to this, marketing would have been like, a subset of these people's jobs or their roles, but it wasn't their primary practice. But that's something that kind of came about a bit more recently in the last couple of centuries. So now if we switch into this modern lens, we're going from Pompeii now, we're going more modern, we're going a few thousand years in the future. So if we look back to the last 150 years, this is where we can start to see like the evolution of marketing really kind of speeding up a little bit. So actually what some academics did is they called them orientations, as in what the kind of focus of organizations was. But I want to call them eras because I think we all know what eras are. Eras in the current slang, rather than like eras from past times of how we talk about eras. But basically, if you look at the 1860s to 1930s, that was all about production, manufacturing, and efficiency. So this is what companies were really focused on. They just wanted to, produce a lot of things, be really efficient, and it wasn't really about promotion or advertising. Then, moving into the early 1900s to the 1950s, it becomes about sales. So this is, I think, the aggressive door-to-door salespeople. This was a big focus on just making sales, transactions, rather than suitability. So it was really just about, volume, making sales. It wasn't really about understanding the customer or what the customer's needs are. It was really just about sales. So think of the traveling salesman just going door to door. The old school type of salesman, not the current salespeople. Then fast forward to the 1950s to the 1970s. This was when the marketing era began. Like marketing, the way that we think about it now. So this was really about understanding needs and wants and desires of customers. And this is where basically the journey to where we are now, this is where we really see where it's kind of come from, right? So this is when, think about Mad Men and that kind of advertising, the glorification of advertising that we've seen in media. That is kind of where this all kind of stems from. So like thinking about like Ogilvy and like these people that are like really trying to sell from like a marketing and advertising promotion point of view now. Then from that, we evolved into the 1970s, where there was a focus on what they called the societal marketing orientation, or I'll call societal marketing era, which was really about social and ethical considerations in marketing and advertising. So, like back in the day, it was like you could kind of get away with what you like. You could really just try and get away with anything in marketing. You could say whatever you wanted. You could make those claims. Like this kind of things that we have to worry about now, about being like, this software will make you very healthy and happy. I don't know, all of those kind of claims that you could, I was just eating a mandarin before. Maybe like this mandarin will change your life. Like we can't just say that now, right? But prior to this, maybe you could. So they're really trying to, in the 1970s, is thinking about a little bit more about the impact of what marketing is doing. Then, in the 1990s, this is where a lot of people think that we still are now. This is where I want to challenge a little bit. Maybe this is another episode that we can do, but 1990s, this is where relationship marketing begins. So this is where we're starting to think about the things that we all really know and we are quite familiar with in our ways of working. So thinking about building the long-term relationship and understanding the customer and it being beneficial for both the customer and the company. So we've really gone on a journey from it being like in the late 1800s, early 1930s to it being like, or early 1900s to it being like, we're just going to make stuff and we're going to sell stuff, to then thinking about actually like needs and wants of the customers, starting to think ethically about how we're talking about it, to then in the 1990s where it's really about forming that long-term relationship and understanding the customer. And I think we're still there, right? Because some of the things that are like very evident, and also a lot of the way that B2B brands work, also B2C, of course, but I think you can see it very clearly through a lot of the sales cycle through into from marketing into sales cycle. But it's very much about building the relationship between sales team and customers. So, think about the discovery call and all of that kind of stuff, or even like personalization and like the user journey from the website, all of, customer lifecycle marketing, all of that kind of stuff. We're really thinking about what is beneficial for customers. How can I deeply understand my customer and like get through to them at the right moment? And like also finding that balance between like triggering them to act, but then also trying to help them as well. So really, again, I'm moving my hand a lot. If you're not watching the video, I'm doing a lot of hand movement as I'm talking. Now, I love this stuff. I think it's so super fun. And then also thinking about being targeted in the approach. So we're not just trying to sell to anybody that would possibly listen, but that there's like a focus on who is this actually for, and is this actually right for you, rather than just trying to sell to everybody and just close a deal. Another thing that is a characteristic of this is looking at customer lifetime value as well, which I think for those of you that are working in a role where you're a little bit more exposed to other kind of metrics other than just social or content marketing metrics, but like really understanding these ones like customer lifetime value, that thing of it's like to retain and expand current customers is more cost effective. So trying to grow your current business, hold on to customers, rather than just like trying to get lots of new ones in all the time. It's also about retaining your current customers and keeping them happy. If you think back to like the 1950s, all of you who remember the 1950s, it was like thinking about the aggressive door-to-door salesperson. It was not really thinking about, I'm going to come back and try and get more out of you. It was really just, I need to close this deal. I need you to buy this now. I don't care if you're happy in the future. This is generalization, but you kind of get what I'm trying to say. And then also another characteristic of this relationship era is also the high levels of customer service. So you think, especially in B2B, we've got like customer success teams, account management teams, even sometimes the role of like sales is kind of leans or can bridge into customer service depending on the organization as well. So I think that's very interesting. And this is reflected a little bit more in some modern definitions of marketing too. So there's a famous marketing author and educator called Philip Kotler. And in the 1980s, he defined marketing as satisfying needs and wants through an exchange process. And I studied marketing at university back in the early 2010s, and that is pretty much the definition that I remember of marketing. I'm not sure if that's the same one that you guys maybe are familiar with as well. His definition has also evolved. So think back to the start of the episode, we were talking about how marketing definitions evolved. But his definition has also evolved to reflect these changes in relationship being the focus. Now, his definition from 2018 says, the process by which companies engage customers, build strong customer relationships, and create customer value in order to capture value from customers in return. And I think that this shift or this evolution has also been seen in the move away from the 4 Ps. So I think that if you ever studied marketing, or even if you didn't study marketing, maybe you've heard of the 4 Ps. Product, price, place, promotion. I think if you studied marketing at university, I think that's probably drilled into your mind. And I think that if you woke me up in the middle of the night and asked me to recite the 4 Ps of marketing, I'm pretty sure that I could do it. But that has actually been criticized as being too internally focused. So thinking about what you as the company are doing rather than thinking about the customer. And if we're thinking about we're in this relationship era, we want to think about what's good for both of us, not what's just good for us. And then, hopefully it works for you. So many people now want to focus on the 4 C's for their marketing mix, which is more customer centric. So bear in mind, if we're still in this relationship marketing era, which I think we've evolved a little bit, but I think a lot of the things still are relevant. I think that the 4 C's, you can definitely see why you would argue for these. So the first C then is consumer. So that's instead of product. So thinking about who's actually using it, right? The consumer of the product. Cost instead of price. Convenience instead of place, and communication instead of promotion. I think it's pretty cool. I don't know if the 4 C's will be drilled into my memory as much as the 4 P's were, but I think if we think about the way that most of us market now, we're probably finding a mix actually between the 4 C's and the 4 P's. I don't know, challenge me if I'm wrong. I really don't mind if you challenge me. But I think maybe like marketers, like modern marketers, we're probably like a little bit more already thinking about the 4 C's, whether we know it or not. So that anyway, I just thought that was super interesting. I think it's really cool to actually look back and see like how marketing has changed from something which was really just outward blasting to almost like a two-way thing. Again, I'm doing a lot of hand movements. If you're not watching the video, it's going to be a treat. There's a lot of hand movements happening. So we've gone from being super company first, super production focused, aggressive selling, to not really thinking about the customer, to being very almost collaborative with the customer. It's relationship. We're interdependent. Like we can't just do stuff anymore. And for a lot of marketers, your customer's not just going to buy just because you say to buy. You have to, actually understand their needs and find your right market, find what you're actually selling and who you're selling it to. And I think also, I believe like a big part of this is that customers have also become more conscious or more savvy over this time, and they're more wary of being sold to. I don't think that generally and again, this is a generalization. I think that people tend to be, especially in B2B circles, I think that people are quite used to thinking critically about things and questioning things like what's being said to them rather than just believing everything that they're being told, which I think is really good, right? And it also makes our jobs as marketers more challenging because we have to actually really think about that and get to present a story that's actually that compelling and actually like trustworthy and actually stands up as well, which I think is a good thing. So yeah, I think that customers have become more savvy and are more wary of being sold to. And so I still think that some could argue that we're still in this relationship marketing era. I think that it's developed or has evolved into a parasocial relationship era. Ooh. For example, people are using the online space to get their recommendations. Yeah, there's all these jokes about dark social, blah, 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 blah. But I think that's actually part of this parasocial relationship marketing era. And I believe that most normal people that are using social media, whether they consciously are aware of it or not, are micro-influencers. People don't necessarily go up to like their friend and be like, hey, can I have a recommendation of what to watch on TV tonight? A lot of people, what they will do is they will put that call out on social media. They'll put it on their story or whatever. Or someone will post, oh, I'm watching this cool show. Oh, I read this good book. All of that kind of stuff, where essentially they've become micro-influencers for their network without necessarily realizing. And, that could be, I could be seeing somebody who I went to high school with, who I maybe had, one conversation with 15 years ago or whatever. I don't actually have a relationship with them anymore, but I've kept up to date with what's going on social media and blah, blah, blah. Maybe I engage with a story or reply to a story or whatever. If I see a book or something that they've recommended, I will probably read that book because I don't actually know that person, but I feel like I know them and I feel like I trust them. That's parasocial relationship. And I think that this is something that's totally happening on LinkedIn as well. The career influencers. And I don't just mean, for example, like the people who are like professional influencers. Obviously, those have been around for a long time. But I think that now, like most normal people that are posting on social media whether they realize it or not, are influencers. And I think the evolution of this as well is like we've seen, especially in the B2C space, we've seen a lot of these career influencers or professional influencers, but now we're really seeing that come into the B2B space. And that's, obviously there's been like the speaker circuit and things like that. But with social media, LinkedIn, podcasts and TikTok, all of that kind of stuff, the B2B influencers are also becoming a very big part of marketing. And you're seeing that a lot with like personal branding stuff really taking off. A lot of people feeling that they need to have a personal brand in order to progress their career. But then also what I'm seeing now as well is people who are, like posting about tools that they're using and like how they do their different workflows and all of that kind of stuff. And these people aren't being paid to do some of those things. I think that's going to be something that we see more of. I think a lot of people are talking about like more paid influencers in the B2B space. But a lot of people are using that as a way to show their knowledge and blah, blah, blah. But they are becoming influencers, right? And so we're seeing that, and we have these parasocial relationships with these people, and we're being influenced by it. So I think that a lot of brands are going to start, they already have, and they're going to continue leveraging these parasocial relationships. I think like I was tossing back and forth between, is it an influencer era? But then I was like, no, influencer, I think doesn't really like drill down to like what's actually happening. It's we feel like we know these people, and it's not just that they're this giant on this giant stage, but someone who I went to uni with or somebody that I worked with. We don't have these like same kind of relationships with these people anymore. It's like we're still seeing everything that they're doing. I don't know. I just think it's super interesting. So let me know what you think. Do you also think that we're in the parasocial relationship marketing era? Or are we in an influencer marketing era? Or are we still just in the relationship marketing era and then I've just gone down the rabbit hole? I don't know. Let me know what you think. Part of why I think that we're not just in the relationship marketing era anymore is I think that we've gone parasocial and influencer based rather than just, I'll go and meet you and give you a firm handshake and then we close the deal. I think there's much more about, I've seen your posts online, I've been following your brand, I've been following your team, the posts that they do. I think that's like a very big part of the buying journey now in marketing. So I think also we see this a lot with podcasts. I don't know why my accent just went weird. It's 11:15 here at nighttime. I think I'm slowly losing it a little bit, but I also think this is super interesting because of the rise of podcasts. And this is why I think that we're in the parasocial relationship era, because podcasts, to me, it's totally parasocial relationship. Like, yes, it's entertaining. Man, my favorite podcast at the moment is called Ride. It's a comedy podcast. It's two friends, two comedians, and they're just chatting. And it's just fun. And I'm on my walk home from work and I'm like listening to it. And I'm like, oh, I feel like I'm a part of this conversation. I feel like I know them. We've got these like inside jokes. I don't know them. I've never met them. But this is the thing, parasocial relationships. That's why I think that podcasts are a really good form of entertainment for people, but also for influencing buying decisions. Yeah, that's that one. And I think in 2024, my prediction is that I think we'll see even more B2B podcasts coming out. I think we'll also see vlogging in the B2B space. I don't think this is something that we've seen a lot of yet, but I believe that we're going to see vlogging coming out of the B2B space. I think we've seen little glimpses of it, like here's a little tutorial or like a, day in the life of, but I think that we're going to see more vlogging. And I think we're going to see more of like that early days of YouTube style influencer, but in the B2B space. So yeah, that's my prediction. And I think that is because of the parasocial marketing era. This podcast we've evolved this podcast from, we're talking about Pompeii and now we're talking about parasocial bonds. So that's interesting. Well, I think it's interesting. Guys, I'm having so much fun. This is cool. Okay, anyway. So where am I? Okay. I think now that the reason that the parasocial relationship stuff and the influencer stuff works really well, especially more towards like the micro-influencer parasocial relationship side of things, is working really well is because consumers are super ad conscious and super ad wary. So remember what I said earlier about how, they've become more savvy and they're like aware of being sold to and they're aware of ads. I think that has progressed dramatically with the way that we see ads on YouTube, as on Instagram, as on TikTok. We see ads everywhere, right? And I remember So back in the day, I had a gardening Instagram account. It's still there, actually. You can still see it. But this was mid-2010s, right? That Instagram aesthetic back then, the influencer style was super curated, like very polished, very beautiful images and videos. But I remember a year ago or something, I was making a TikTok just for fun. I made this really nice TikTok of this bit of art that I'd bought from a friend, but it looked so much like an ad on like the way that we see ads now that it totally flopped. And it got no views, no likes. It was so beautiful. If it was mid-2010s, like mid-2010s Instagram, it would have got like 300 likes, easy. 300 Instagram likes from my micro-influencer account back then would have been crazy. Been super cool. But on TikTok, it just didn't work because it was way too much like an ad. And people don't like feeling like they're being sold to. So I think that these alternative approaches, so the parasocial relationship stuff, like the podcast, the vlogging, these day in the life kind of things, I think that you can still have like beautiful production, or you can still have high quality imagery or high quality video. But I think we're going to move away from this like overproduced style of ad. People are just going to have the blinders on and not going to be like looking at it and not taking it in. So I think we're already seeing that happening on TikTok. I think that's also going to happen with video on YouTube as well. I think that's going to be really interesting. Oh, I've gone too far. I'm going to save this for the next episode because I want to talk more about the future of stuff in a little bit in the next episode as well. So that'll be out when this is out. So you can just go straight through into listening to that one as well. Anyway, so I just want to wrap that up by saying I think the reason that it works is because it's authentic and it's trustworthy. Again, stay tuned for the next episode to hear more about that. But I'm just going to quickly fire through some key moments that have influenced marketing practice. So we're talking about this evolution. Let's look at the timeline. All right, 1450. We're going way back. The year was 1450. This was when the printer, metal movable type, that's when that was made. And then that basically meant that flyers and brochures could be mass produced. Then the 1600s, paid advertising in Italy. Then fast forward a few hundred years, 1864, the earliest recorded use of the telegraph for mass unsolicited spam. So people have been being spammed for like, God, almost 200 years. That's crazy. Then 1876, films produced by French filmmakers feature sunlight soap and are thought to be the first recorded instance of paid product placement. So 1876, that's a long way back. Wild. If you haven't seen Mean Girls, the movie musical out yet, a lot of paid product placement there. And again, almost, well, I guess that's more closer to 150 years of that. 1920s, radio advertising commences. 1941, first recorded use of television advertising. Then 1950s, systemization of telemarketing. Jump forward to the 1970s, e-commerce is developed. Then in the 1980s, computer-oriented spam. With all good things come bad things too. Mid-1990s, modern search engines started appearing, with Google making its debut in 1998. The 2000s, 2003 to 2006, the emergence of social media, MySpace and LinkedIn in 2003, Facebook in 2004, and Twitter in 2006. So basically, marketing has evolved a lot throughout the past couple of thousands of years, let alone like the things that have happened in the past like 200 years is crazy for marketing. And it's obviously not done yet. So I think coming back to like everything that I just... this has just been fun, guys. I hope that you've had fun too. But basically, all that I wanted to kind of say today is just, I think what it comes back to, if you're looking at the evolution of marketing over the years, the big thing is about just deeply understanding your customer and who they are, what they care about, and tapping into that. So whether we're in the parasocial relationship marketing era or in the relationship marketing era, it's all about understanding your customer. And yeah, I'm going to dive more into this parasocial relationship thing too, because I just find it so fascinating. But yeah, what do you think? Are we in the parasocial relationship era? Are we in the relationship marketing era still? Should we call it influencer marketing era? Or are we in something else completely different? I want to know what you think. I'm going to try and put a little poll on Spotify. If you're listening on Spotify, have a look there and yeah, let me know what you think there, and I will share the results for the next time that I am recording. If you want to know more about where marketing is heading, make sure you listen to the next episode of the Super Fun Marketing Podcast to hear some more about some 2024 marketing trends that I think are super important to watch out for. So stay tuned for that. And then to wrap up for this week, what I want to do is a little segment, which is things I'm thinking about this week, in brackets, no action required. So one thing that I've been thinking about this week is about TikTok trying to do landscape videos or promoting that users use landscape videos. I'm not sure if you've seen, but a few users on TikTok have got notifications from within the app from TikTok saying, create a landscape video, make it longer than a minute, make sure that it's like original content, so not podcast clips, like reposts of like movies or TVs or whatever. Yeah, put it with the hashtag longer videos, click on this little button, and we're going to boost your views, and you're going to get more views on these landscape videos. So I think that's super interesting. I think maybe they're trying to get ready to take on YouTube with longer form content. I don't know if you've seen, but they're also improving the experience on bigger screens, so laptops, tablets. I saw somebody saying they think that it's so that they can do ads, top and bottom ads on the phone. I think it's more to do with competing with YouTube and longer form content there. But yeah, no action required. Just been thinking about it. But yeah, have you been thinking about it too? I don't know. If you have, let me know what you think. Have you tried it out? I haven't tried it out yet. Again, no action required, but maybe I will. So yeah, that's it from me. That's a super fun marketing podcast. Thanks so much for listening, and stay tuned for the next episode. And I will see you next time on the Super Fun Marketing Podcast with Victoria. Thank you. Bye-bye.